Alright, people. Midweek report time. So, a lot to talk about. A lot of fight cards been announced over the last couple of days. But let's start. God, where do we start with this? So, the Fury Usyk situation, right? Well, obviously, we know that fight's happening February 17th. There's a lot that's come out between Opataya and Fury over the weekend to now having a look at. Yeah, it was only roughly 12 minutes. I know the video that's still on YouTube, and actually, I have a few people actually message me and they sent me a link. It's still up. The one that I watched is still on YouTube as we speak now. I think if you just type in, it's a kind of, you can tell it's a customized, I think that's how they're getting around it actually. It's kind of a customized thumbnail. I think that's how they're getting away with still having it on YouTube. Maybe they're not looking for it. But it is still on YouTube, the face-off. Now, again, it is only 12 minutes. It's definitely not the full edited version. I would imagine that when TNT release it, it's going to be a lot longer. Now, it's probably going to go about 20 minutes thereabouts, but it'll probably, maybe some of the topics they talked about, or that little snippets of those topics that were taken, they'll segue into other topics that were missed. If you haven't already seen it, I already did a video on it, go and have a look at that. Fury mentioned that he's only really going to be training 5 weeks for this. I seriously doubt that. Even Steve Bunt said, well, you said you trained 12 weeks for the Ngannou fight. And of course he refused. It's Fury. That's what he does. He says this 1 minute and then that the next. Now that's why I'm amazed people take what he says a lot of the time as gospel. Like, it's like, that's what it is, and heaven forbid you question it. But then he's like, well, I didn't mean that. It's like, well, that's what Fury does. He doesn't mean anything. And it's like, I just to be amazed when some people to be like, we said it, so it's true. And then he says the complete opposite. Well, you know, he doesn't mean everything he says. He just, well, according to you, he meant it, a week ago? You know, and with regards to the Opataya situation, I'll just touch on it briefly. It's a strange one. It's a strange one, him going to Saudi Arabia just to spar basically 5 rounds, then to go home. I don't get that, right? And look, it could very well be that he got there and thought, okay, look, it's all southpaw sparring, it's Moses Atelma, probably amongst others, but I'm not assuming for a second that it's just Atelma. It's obviously probably more in there, because I was actually thinking of doing a video on who Alexander Usyk has in the gym sparring. Now, he's obviously got more than one sparring partner. Now, I have to look at them because they're not, apart from Marius Vac, which is he's obviously in Usyk's training camp, apart from him, there's not really anyone there. Look, I like heavyweight boxing. I look at some up-and-coming prospects, even some that maybe wouldn't get as much attention as an Atelma, a Johnny Fisher, people like that. But even some of these guys, I'm like, who the hell is that? You know, and I have to go and actually look and say, okay, he kind of does this, not as good as Tyson Fury, maybe similar-ish. I can see where they're coming from. So I'd need to kind of have a look at that before doing a video on it. In terms of Fury Opataya, look, Opataya will be the best type of sparring partner for Alexander Usyk, in my opinion. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. It could just be that Opataya got there and thought, all right, I'm training for Myris Bradis, 6 foot tall, orthodox, different style altogether than Tyson Fury, completely different dimensions. Fair enough. But it is interesting. I find amazing that, you know, if this was Anthony Joshua, say there was a rumour that Anthony Joshua had Martin Bakole in. And, you know, Martin Bakole, for someone like a Francis Ngannou, wouldn't be a bad shout. Let's just say he had Martin Bakole in for sparring. Anthony Joshua sends Bakole home, or Bakole leaves after a day or so, and the rumour mill is that Joshua gets dropped. These same people saying that, oh, this is nothing, don't, blah, 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 haters, this, that, and the other. They'd be all saying, Joshua can't take a shot, Joshua's afraid, he has to kick Bakole out of a gym. You know, I don't know what happened. The only people who were there know what happened. And a lot of them have to sign a non-disclosure agreement anyway. Hence the reason why you never hear stories, certainly when you hear about, like, say, Joshua a couple of years ago, where you had people like Dubois dropped him and Nicole dropped. You don't hear them. They might say, yeah, I done well. That's probably all they can say. They can't turn around and say, like, oh yeah, I dropped them, whatever, and did this. Probably liable to get sued for that. So that's a situation there. In terms of the fights, right, because believe me, there is fight announcements coming thick and fast. Let's start with some of the matchroom ones. So, Saturday, the 23rd of March, there is a show on in Sheffield. Headlined by Dalton Smith. He's headlining there a good bit now. Now, last year he fought Sam Maxwell. In fact, that was actually his last. I actually thought he had a fight after that. No, that was his last fight. Big jump up. Jose Zepeda. Step up isn't even remotely close. I mean, I think Sam Maxwell lost his next fight, if I'm not mistaken. I think he fought on the undercard of Conlon versus Gill. I'll just double check that. Yeah, he did. Lost to Sean McComb over 10 rounds. So, big jump up in class. Jose Zepeda, former world title challenger. I always get him mixed up with Ramirez, but Zepeda, former world title challenger, lost to Richardson Hutchins, lost to Regis Prograis, had that brilliant fight in 2020. This was behind closed doors. This was in the theater. I think it was in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, against Ivan Baranchek. Honestly, that was a 5-round fight. That was unbelievable. But it probably ruined Zepeda's career. In the long run, that fight probably ruined Jose Zepeda's career because both guys in 5 rounds took a tremendous amount of damage. They were dropped each other, I think, several. I think everyone was dropped in at least a round. I think there wasn't a round where there wasn't a knockdown. And yeah, it was something else. If you've never seen that fight, I recommend you go watch it. It just needed fans. That's all that needed. But this is a big jump up in class, so it's going to be interesting to see how Dalton Smith deals with it. Sandy Ryan, Terry Harper. And this one right here, James Flint versus Campbell Hatton. Now, that's actually that's a 10-rounder for the Central Area title. So, and it's at 140 pounds. Now, you know my stance on Campbell Hatton. I've not been impressed with him. Right, I haven't. Now, at the start of his career, I was kind of like, okay, he looks poor. He looked poor, right? But give him a little bit of time and see how he progresses. And he hasn't. I like what Hearn is doing, that he's putting him further down the card, whereas when Sky were involved, they were having him a lot higher. He's further down the card. He's being matched very carefully, but he's been pro now 3 years. And this is a step up. But you can tell they're still treating him with kid gloves. Now, you look at someone like a Chris Eubank Jr. or a Conor Benn at that same point in their respective careers, they were moved further along. They weren't moved massively fast, but they were still moved that little bit faster. I'll tell you why. Because with Conor Benn and with Chris Eubank Jr., although early on in their careers you looked at them and thought, there's not a great deal there, there was little bits of things you could find. You know, Benn, ferocious. You had Eubank, the athleticism jumped out at you straight away. The punching power didn't really with Eubank. It was really kind of when he started, ironically, it was really more when he started actually upping the levels. You started seeing the punching power more so. But you did start seeing things. With Campbell Hatton, I just see nothing. You know, he reminds me a little bit of kind of Steve Collins Jr. in a sense of he just came into boxing because his dad did it. Different. He was obviously a lot bigger than Campbell Hatton in terms of just body mass dimensions, but he offered nothing. And he obviously turned pro, I think, with Frank Warren. I know he fought in a few Queensbury shows, didn't look good, and you know Frank was just like, see you later. Campbell Hatton, Eddie Hearn is not as cutthroat as that. But I don't know. If we don't see improvements with Campbell Hatton soon, I don't know what Eddie Hearn is going to do. In terms of Jordan Gill, he'll take on Zelfa Barrett in Manchester. That's a pretty good fight. That's a real kind of crossroads. One can go on to bigger and better things. The other, it's a long road back. I would favour Zelfa Barrett in that fight. Although saying that, Jordan Gill really surprised me last time around. I just look at Jordan Gill and I just think he's had some horrible fights in terms of beatings and even fights he's won. The punishment he's taken in those fights. I look at that and I just think, yeah, Conlon, his punch resistance is gone. And you look good against him, but like Zelfa Barrett's lost. He's had some tough fights, but he's not taken the kind of punishment, I don't think, anyway, that Jordan Gill has. So we have to go and look at that. We also then have Richardson Hutchins versus, I always get this guy's name wrong, Gustavo Daniel Lemos. I think is how you say that, because I think he's Argentinian. This is a 140-pound fight. The winner will be mandated to fight Subriel Mateas the winner will be mandated to challenge Subriel Mateas. That's interesting. Now, that guy, Gustav Daniel Lemos, I think is how you say it, he ended Lee Selby's career. He stopped him in 2022. And he hasn't really done much since then. He looked very very entertaining to say the least. And him and Mateus would be an absolute war. I mean, that's got fight of the year written all over it. Few little technical flaws there, definitely, and Lee Selby had no business in there at 135, in my opinion. So he was able to go in there. I think he stopped him in about 5 rounds. But him against Hutchinson, all right, let's have a look. See, that should be good. That should be good. Now, Naoya Inoue versus Lewis Neary is reportedly eyed for the 6th of May. I have to look and see what date that is, because in Japan they do boxing on very strange days. That's actually a bank holiday in Ireland. Chances are I won't be in Ireland, but let's see. And that's on a Monday. They do boxing in very strange dates over there. Days, I should say. But they're reportedly saying that it's going to be at the Tokyo Dome, according to Japanese media. The venue has not hosted boxing since Tyson fought Douglas. February 1990, 34 years since the Tokyo Dome was hosted a boxing event. It could have Inoue versus Neary, which is a very good fight. I'm surprised Inoue is sticking around at 122, despite the fact he's undisputed. But to fight Neary, that fight has always been a fight that I've looked forward to. I've been intrigued at, because I've really wanted to see it. Neary in Japan, in boxing circles, is public enemy number 1. I mean, he is public enemy number 1. I cannot remember the champion's name. And he was a long reigning champion as well. He was WBC champion at 118. And forgive my ignorance, but I can't remember his name. No, I can see the fighter, but I just can't picture the name. But he was a long reigning champion. I think he was with the WBC. Fought Neary. Neary beats him, gets popped. They have a rematch. I don't even think it was that he missed weight by like a small amount. I think he missed it by a couple of pounds. So he was, I think he was blacklisted from fighting in Japan for a while. So yeah, he is public enemy number 1 in terms of Japanese boxing, and he's going in there against arguably the biggest name in Japanese boxing, in Naoya Inoue. So that's going to be, that is going to be a seriously pro Inoue crowd and a seriously anti Lewis Neary crowd. I mean, they are going to be. He's honestly, I wouldn't want to be him over there in Japan. I hope he's getting well paid. Now, there was a lot of reports going over the last couple of days that Ryan Garcia would be facing Rolly Romero. Okay. Again, Garcia, first it was Haney, then it was Rolly, then it was Pitbull, now it's Rolly again. Apparently not. Apparently it won't be him, right? It apparently actually is going to be Rolly versus Isaac Cruz. Pitbull's going to be a world champion and will probably rematch Tank Davis, I would imagine. That's reportedly now finalised for March 30th in Vegas, despite Garcia claiming, look, Ryan Garcia says what Ryan Garcia says. The WBA super lightweight world title will be on the line, and also Tim Tszyu. This is a bit out of left field. Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman will take place. Apparently, it will reportedly not be for Tim Tszyu's WBO world title, as the WBO will not sanction that fight. It will actually take place at Canelo weight. For those who don't know what Canelo weight is, 155 pounds. So it'll be over the 154 pound limit, so no title will be on the line. Thurman has been inactive now for well over a year, nearly 2 years. More? When did he last fight? 2022? So he's been inactive for a while. He's never fought at 154. So I understand where the WBO are coming from by not allowing, because they're like, well, what have you ever, has he even held? I don't even think he's ever held a version of a WBO title as Keith Thurman, because he was unified at 147 with the WBA and WBC. Didn't have the other two. So I can understand where they're coming from there. It's a strange one. It's claimed that will be the first PBC show pay-per-view in the US. I don't really know. I mean, obviously, Pitbull versus Rolly on the undercard is good, but Tim Tszyu versus Thurman was never a pay-per-view star. I mean, that Danny Garcia fight he had wasn't on pay-per-view. I don't think Sean Porter was on pay-per-view. When the only pay-per-view he's done of my memory is the Pacquiao one, and realistically, that's Manny Pacquiao. people are chewing into. It's not Keith Thurman. I like Keith Thurman, but Keith Thurman's career for the last decade really has been just so frustrating. Inactivities, this, that, and the other. And yeah, I would make Tszyu firm favourite to beat Keith Thurman. In fact, I would be amazed if that fight's even competitive, to be honest with you. That's how Keith Thurman, in my opinion, has regressed. In my opinion, anyway. In terms of fight dates for fights that we do want to see, June the 1st is the reported date in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, for the undisputed light heavyweight championship fight. Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol. Lads, come on. We want that fight. We want that fight. I'm liking it. I'm liking the fact that that fight seemingly now is a good to go. I'm thinking that fight is just... I think that fight is just going to be epic. Again, Beterbiev is a tremendous fighter. He is. I mean, he is just... Honestly, Beterbiev is something else. I seen Chris Algieri, I think it was in Boxing Scene, on a Boxing Scene article, say that a prime Roy Jones beats everybody at light heavy, including Beterbiev. Whilst I would pick a prime Roy Jones over Beterbiev, no one's unbeatable. But Beterbiev will be game in that fight. Seriously. I look at Beterbiev and I think that, for me, someone who early on will cause him fits is someone like Dmitry Bivol. If you go and you look at Marcus Brown early on, he was able to have success. He was boxing. He was using his speed. Marcus Brown is not as good, as talented. Speed-wise, he is very fast, Marcus Brown. He's up there at light heavyweight. He's very fast heavyweight, or light heavyweight. Very fast. But he is nowhere near as talented, doesn't have the footwork, doesn't have the movement, doesn't have the shot selection, the hand speed of a Dmitry Bivol. Dmitry Bivol is just better. And I think that if Marcus Brown is having that success early on, yes, he was eventually caught up to and taken out. I think Bivol is going to do it. I think Bivol is going to win. I'm just going to say, I think Bivol is going to win. I think Bivol will just be able to tick all those boxes. He'll be able to just win those rounds, pick up the rounds, do more, basically get in and out of dodge. Some would maybe say, is he running a little bit? Is he moving too much? And maybe some people might not like, maybe the judges won't like that. I don't know. But I think Bivol is going to win that fight. I do. Now, I could be wrong. Look at Beterbiev. He is someone who just... He is underrated in terms of his boxing. I mean, we think of him as a brute force destroyer. He's a good counter puncher. He's a very, very good jab. Incredible jab, really. It's tremendous. It's better than some people's right hand. So there's a lot he could do to offset Dmitry Bivol. But I just think Bivol is just... I think Bivol's going to have too much. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But I think as well the age. Beterbiev is... Although when he fought Smith, he was 30. He was basically 39. So he's 39 going on 40. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't... I'm fancying Dmitry Bivol to win that fight. I'm fancying Bivol to win that fight. In terms of everything else, I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, it was a lot of fight cards announced. I'm reading them here on Twitter. I had a few on BoxRec open there. But there's not a great deal... There's really not a great deal else. It's mainly been those ones. So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I'll definitely try over the course of the weekend. We obviously got to do Munguia. Actually, Munguia versus Riders this weekend. We will do a post-fight for that, because I'm looking forward to that fight. I think that fight is going to be very good. Favouring Munguia, but I think it's going to be a good fight nonetheless. And then the following week, we have, I was going to say Yard, but Dan Aziz, Joshua Buatsi. I was thinking of British light heavyweights. We have that. Then we have the Queensbury show, Williams versus Shearers, the following week. Fury Usyk. There you go, Fury Usyk. And then we have a 3-week gap, but I think there's fights in that. I just can't think of the cards off the top of my head now. But we have a lot of good stuff coming up over the next few weeks. Like boxing, for me, I think is in a good place. Certainly in 2024, we're getting a lot of cards announced. We're getting big cards announced. And I think boxing is in a very good place. I really do. So... yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section below. As always, people, if you enjoyed it, smash the like button. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Love seeing the numbers go up. We're not a million miles off. We're not a million miles off getting to 16k. You know, we've really cruised through 15k. We're not a million miles off getting to 16. Let's do it. Let's do it, lads. Let's do it. For now, I will leave you with that. Peace.